let's dive right into the chaotic reality of production environments. You know how in development, everything just feels perfect? The database is local, your network is lightning fast, the test accounts work flawlessly. It totally lulls us into this false sense of security while we're comfortably sipping our coffee. But the second you deploy to a real production environment, that illusion completely shatters.
Because the reality is simple and honestly a bit brutal. Every single application fails. APIs fail. Databases get completely overloaded. Networks time out. Payment providers drop offline. And yeah, even your own perfectly written code is going to fail at some point. The question isn't if failure will happen. It absolutely will, and usually it's going to result in a 3 a.m. pager alert. So, the real question you need to ask yourself is, what actually happens when that failure hits? Does your entire application just crash and burn? Does a user see some terrifying, confusing error message? Or worse, does a customer get charged twice for a course because a background job retried endlessly? Or is your architecture actually designed to handle that failure safely, gracefully, and quietly?
In today's explainer, we're covering 1. The reality of failure. 2. Communicating errors effectively. 3. Stopping cascading failures. 4. Safe asynchronous workflows. 5. Resilience in action. And 6. Avoiding common mistakes.
Section 1. The reality of failure. Production is vastly different from development, right? Users submit unexpected inputs, external APIs return completely bizarre errors, and massive traffic spikes hit out of nowhere. Because production is so chaotic, step 1 is literally just classifying our errors to prevent bad, hard-to-debug behavior. Look, not all errors are equal. A validation error, like a user uploading an invalid file type, just needs clear and immediate feedback directed right to that user. A transient error, like a brief network timeout, that might just need a safe automated retry. But a system error, like your core database being completely unavailable, that means we need to stop, absolutely avoid retrying forever, and immediately sound the alarms to engineering. Classifying these is what helps us decide whether to retry, block, or alert.
Section 2. Communicating errors effectively.
Okay, let's talk about how we actually communicate these errors, because user-facing messages need to be clear, safe, and helpful. If your database crashes, the user should simply see something like, "We couldn't generate your report right now, please try again later." They absolutely do not need to know that a SQL constraint violation occurred. Leaking internal details like that just confuses people, or worse, gives a malicious attacker a roadmap. But the developer? They need the whole story. They need the exact error type, the stack trace, the service name, and the correlation ID. Good error handling is a balancing act. You protect user trust with safe, generic messages, while simultaneously giving developers the deep, specific context they need to investigate under the hood.
Section 3. Stopping cascading failures.
Now, what's really interesting is how we stop the immediate bleeding when a critical dependency goes down, ensuring one broken service doesn't take down your whole company. The first essential pattern here is fail fast. This literally means detecting invalid conditions early on and just stopping before the system does unnecessary work. By validating inputs, checking file sizes, or verifying permissions, before executing heavy, resource-intensive database tasks, we fail fast. It prevents wasted resources, reduces risk, and stops bad input from flowing deep into the system where it creates totally confusing failures later on.
Next up, we have circuit breakers. Honestly, this is one of the most brilliant architectural patterns in software. It prevents an application from constantly calling a failing dependency. It works exactly like the electrical circuit breakers in your house. If your search engine API is down, the breaker opens after a few failures. And once it's open, it instantly returns fast errors locally. It completely stops cascading failures in their tracks instead of making your system wait and hang on a broken dependency.
But wait, what happens to the user experience when that circuit breaker actually opens? That is exactly where graceful degradation comes in. The system keeps operating just with reduced functionality. For example, if your complex AI recommendation service goes down on a learning platform, graceful degradation means falling back to showing a static list of popular courses instead of just crashing the entire homepage. The user can still browse, they can still learn, and the product still works.
Our final synchronous pattern is bulkheads. Taking direct inspiration from ship compartments, we use bulkheads to isolate parts of a system so one single failure does not sink the entire ship. In software, we use these to separate resource queues. This ensures that one massive heavy report generation job triggered by a single user doesn't gobble up all the database connections that everyone else needs to simply log in. The failure stays perfectly contained in its own little compartment.
Section 4. Safe asynchronous workflows. With our synchronous shields firmly in place, let's look at how we manage background chaos with asynchronous safety nets. Often, we need to retry a failed background task. But if an email provider goes down, we definitely do not want 1,000 workers retrying every single millisecond. To fix this, we build up what's called exponential backoff, giving a failing dependency actual time to recover. We might retry after 1 second, then 2, then 4, then 8. And when we add a tiny bit of randomness to those wait times, a cool concept called jitter, we prevent massive, simultaneous retry storms. Think of jitter as a way to make sure 10,000 servers aren't knocking on the door at the exact same millisecond the system finally comes back online.
Now, the absolutely crucial point here is this. If you're going to use retries, your operations must be idempotent. Idempotency is just a fancy way of saying an operation can be repeated over and over without changing the final result beyond the first successful execution. If a payment webhook arrives twice or a certificate generation job retries, idempotency is what prevents duplicate charges or duplicate certificates. One payment ID should create exactly one enrollment, period, no matter how many times the system retries it. If it is not safe to retry, failure recovery becomes incredibly dangerous.
But what if a task is just doomed to fail forever? Enter dead letter queues. This involves moving repeatedly failing messages over to a special queue for controlled investigation. When a poison message is guaranteed to fail forever, like a background job trying to reference a course a user already deleted, dead letter queues step in to catch it. They stop that poison message from permanently blocking your workers in an endless, ominous loop of doomed retries.
Section 5. Resilience in action.
Let's see how all this builds together in a real-world scenario, say, on a learning platform like Uplatz. Minute 1, payment processing succeeds. Awesome. Minute 2, oh wait, the internal course enrollment system fails. So the user paid but didn't get access. In distributed systems, workflows partially succeed all the time. This illustrates exactly why asynchronous compensation workflows are strictly required. By minute 5, a background reconciliation job automatically detects that successful payment without matching access, and it just repairs it by completing the enrollment. Resilient systems don't just prevent failure, they automatically recover from it.
Section 6. Avoiding common mistakes. Before we wrap up, we really need to highlight how teams completely break their own resilience, catching errors and just hiding them so they become literally impossible to debug, showing raw stack traces to your users, blindly retrying everything and wasting precious resources, retrying without idempotency, which leads to duplicating charges, forgetting timeouts so your requests hang forever and totally exhaust your servers, and missing circuit breakers entirely. Look, good error handling is way more than just wrapping your code in a basic try-catch block. If you make these mistakes, you're risking massive, system-wide incidents that could have easily been contained.
I absolutely love this quote. Reliable systems are not systems that never fail. They are systems that handle failure safely. It's so true, right? Resilience isn't just a single feature you bolt on at the end of a sprint. It is an architectural mindset. It's an approach that fundamentally assumes failure will happen and designs safe, protective responses across the entire system.
So I leave you with this final undeniable fact. Your system will fail today. Is it actually designed to survive it? Take a moment to think deeply about your own dependencies, where your weak links are, and how you can implement these exact patterns. Join us on our next explainer where we're going to explore caching strategies to further optimize and protect those critical applications. Thanks for learning with me today.